Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I did turn on the recording so that this session will be recorded, so you can refer to it later if you need to, or you can pass it on to colleagues who maybe weren't able to attend, and we typically will post it on our YouTube channel. But if you'd like me to send it to you directly, just fire me off an email sometime after the session, and I'd be happy to fire you off the link. Today, we're going to talk about the North49 customer portal for Sage Intacct. And what that does is allows customers of those folks using Sage Intacct to self-manage their accounts, to pay their accounts online, place orders, that type of thing. To start off the presentation, I'm going to just run through a few slides to introduce the concepts, but I will get into the live product and let you see how that works. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, I ask you to put them in the Q&A session because that does get saved with the recording so that if we don't get to them during the session, I'll have a chance to get answers to you afterwards. The chat doesn't do the same thing, so please enter any questions into the Q&A as opposed to the chat. So let's get down to it. So first of all, let's chat about the customer portal itself. Now, the pandemic brought a whole bunch of new, requirements to organizations, businesses out there in order to allow them to continue to do business with their customers. Everybody kind of got sequestered into their homes or elsewhere, not necessarily going into their places of work where everything was set up for them to do business. So it necessitated businesses to find another way or a different way for them to communicate with and engage with their customers. And this quote came out very early in the pandemic, and it proved to be fairly prophetic. Things that were adopted during the pandemic are continuing to be adopted and carried on today because it just showed how easy it is to do business with people wherever they might be. And it just gave businesses a new avenue and a new way to deal with their customers. And there's lots of benefits to both the customers and the merchants, the folks who are deploying these portals, because not only does it allow them to continue to do business, but it does remove a lot of the administrative overhead in dealing with their customers, things like accepting payments. When the customer can do it by themselves, you offload that entire burden, which can take 5 to 10 minutes per transaction. So we've had one customer tell us that they've saved at least one full-time equivalent employee by deploying just that component of it, allowing the customers to pay them online. And there's other benefits as well, because when you expose a customer's account to them and allow them to access it anytime they want 24/7, you also eliminate all of those kind of low value queries like, I didn't get my invoice. Can you resend it? Or how much do I owe you? And what's the status of my order? And all these kind of things that customers should be able to do themselves, and they actually want to do it themselves. You're finding more and more propensity for customers wanting self-service. In fact, I saw a statistic that said, I think it was something like 40% of customers out there were prepared to change vendors if they did not have these online capabilities for both account management and also to place orders online. So if 40% of the people out there are prepared to change vendors just to get online capabilities, then most vendors out there should be looking for ways to provide that for their customers. From a customer portal perspective, at least a North49 customer portal perspective, there's a few different things that we can offer. And the very most basic thing that we offer is a click-to-pay link. And this link would appear either in your invoice document or perhaps in an email that you send out to them. And it really just directs them to a screen that looks like this. And I'll show you this live. But it just allows them to pay that invoice. And that's it, because we've not asked them to log in. So it's a very simple way for them to pay. And what we've found, and what a lot of our customers are finding, is that when you make it easy for your customers to pay, they pay you more quickly. So it really reduces those day sales outstanding, cuts down your receivables, and just gets that money into your hands more quickly. So the time value of that money is now a benefit to you, and you're not sitting there having to wait for it or going into some extensive collection process with your customers to collect that money. Now, of course, there's a full portal that provides all the capabilities that the customer portal has available to it. And I'll show you all this stuff and you can see what that is. We'll give a quick look at all the features and capabilities so you can see what the full portal looks like. And there's different levels of it as well. And these are all annual subscriptions. So there's the basic customer portal, and then you add the online payments as an option, and then you add the order entry as an option. So those are the three different levels of subscription that you can get. And depending upon what you subscribe to, different icons are going to show up on your screen. There's even a quick order entry form. Now, this is aimed specifically at your AR customers, folks who already exist inside your system. It's not a B2C kind of a thing, because we do need to process against a customer, and we do need we do need to know who they are, so we know what prices they've been assigned to them, and we know what products they're allowed to buy. And I'll give you a quick look at that as well. So the portal is designed to be a set and forget application. It is a live read and feed of data from the portal to your Sage Intacct system. So, it's set up through web services. Once it's all set up, it just does what it does. You don't need to babysit it or do anything about it. It just is there. Your customers can access it when they need to access it. It will in a live manner, when they request an invoice, let's say, it'll go and search it up in Intacct and serve it up on the screen for those customers. And I'll show you what that looks like. So, and it works on any device. So the screens that are displayed for the customer will scale appropriately depending upon the device that they're using, whether it be a 30-inch monitor in their office or a small 5.5-inch screen in their hand. The screens do adapt appropriately and give them that great experience. So that's kind of all the intro I wanted to set you up for. Let's just pop into the actual product and have a look at what that's about. And I want to start off, first of all, with that click to pay. And so what we've done here is we just mocked it up inside of a Word document, and you could do the same thing. And you can see when I hover on there what that link is. So really, it's just pointing to the URL of the portal. And this is going to be a subdomain of your own domain. So it's not going to be our domain, it's going to be yours, so that your customers are comfortable that this is actually going to the right people. And then we just feed it the customer number, that's their AR account number, and we feed it the document number. And by doing so, and when they click on that, what pops up is the quick pay screen, or the click to pay screen. And so right now you can see it's popped up here. Now we're going off into Sage Intacct Live, and we're bringing back more data. So we're validating that invoice is for that customer and it is still open to pay. So that little delay you saw there was us reading live into Intacct and bringing back that data to validate it. And you'll notice in my merchant account that's been set up here, I can pay either by credit card or by ACH. And that's a function of the merchant account with the payment processor. And incidentally, North49 was acquired by a company called Evo Payments, that's EVO Payments, back in May of 2022. And so as such, we can now provide you with a merchant account. And we do have great rates. We have great service. We own the process front to back. So it's a one-stop shop. So that's the nice thing about this, is we complete the cycle from the customer standpoint to your merchant credit card processing standpoint. It can all be a one-stop shop. So again, from a customer standpoint, I've got the invoice number here. This is an option where we've got this as an editable field. You don't have to turn that on, but you can. So there are some folks who wanted the ability for customers to part pay. So this is an option that's set up here. So in my case, I'm just going to pay $10 on here. I like to use the same invoice over and over again, so I don't have to recreate it. So I'm going to hit that pay invoice button. From a customer perspective, what's happening now is we're popping up the screen here. And this, in my case, is called Pay Fabric. That is the product that Evo Payments has for us, and we've got it integrated into the portal. I'm going to enter my dummy account number here, and let's say this is my, I believe it does want me to enter the name. So that's all I have to do here, and I hit that pay button. What's happening now is it's running out to the payment gateway. So this was not, that screen you saw there was not on the portal itself. It was in the Evo Payment Processing Vault. So the portal itself is never really physically touching that card, nor by extension is the merchant who is signed up for this. So it sent that transaction out. We got the post back, and that's what this is a result of here. So it's saying, yes, you've got your money, successful. I can print this receipt if I want to. At the same time, we are sending an email to the email address that sits on the AR account in Sage Intacct, so that they also get an email receipt that shows all the same information. But I could print this from here if I wanted to. At the same time, there's some messaging that goes on to the merchant internally, and that can come by email, that can come to a Microsoft Teams team, or it can come to a Slack channel. So anybody you've got set up in either an email distribution list or a Microsoft team or a Slack channel can get this notification informing them that this customer paid this invoice for this amount of money on this date. So if you're involved in a collection process with this customer, you're going to see immediately that this has happened. And that messaging is instantaneous. So you would get that notification immediately when it happened. So that's what the customer sees from the portal perspective on the click to pay. And that's it. That's all they can do. They can only pay that invoice document. We have not asked them to log in. So clearly we can't give them exposure to anything else. But if they want to log in, we can give them exposure to everything that's in the portal. So this up here, you might have noticed, now that is going to be your logo or the logo of the merchant who has signed up for the portal. And there's a lot of real estate in here that you could have a logo, maybe some messaging there, whatever you wanted to have. We also support currently English and French, but we can support other languages. If you need to, just let us know and we're happy to make that happen. This bit here you control. So you type that message in back in the admin side of things, and that's what's going to display when your customers log in. And incidentally, when somebody clicks on this, let's say I selected French, everything that we control, we will change. This, of course, merchant controls. So unless they typed it in a different language, it's going to display in the language that they put it in. And we will attempt to drop a cookie onto the user's machine if they do so that next time they log in, they can see French or whatever language it was. And they don't have to change this every time. And you can also set that default yourself in the back end as well to whatever language you want this to display as. And of course, this is going to be your address down here and so forth. The way customers get signed up for the portal, there's a few different ways it can happen. So the first thing is they could just send you an email and say, please set me up, and you can take complete control of it if you want to. A lot of the reason why folks get the portal is so that they can offload some of the administrative burden of dealing with this stuff. So we provided a means for customers to register themselves. So you get a screen like this. Basically, it says, what username do you want for the portal? And incidentally, you can have more than one user on any one AR account. So multiple employees at your customer site can use this to log in and do business on behalf of that customer. They are going to need to know their AR account number, some other corroborating bit of information. We have about 5 different questions that we can ask that will verify that they are who they say they are. And it's going to be things they would need to know about that AR account, right? So something, I think it's things like last invoice date, last invoice amount, or last payment amount, something like that, right? They would need to know that. And so we can corroborate against that information. So once they fill all this in, give themselves a password, all that stuff, and they hit that register button, 2 things can happen. If they answer this question correctly, we can grant them immediate access. And when we do that, you have the option of sending an email again to that AR email address that sits in Intacct and let them know this user has registered for access to this account. And if for some reason they didn't want that to be the case, you can turn them off. They can instruct you to turn them off. It's easy for you to turn them off. The other option is it just goes in and it waits for you to approve them. And again, in the administrative back end that I can show you toward the end of the presentation, you can turn folks on and off and authorize them and approve them and that kind of thing in the back end. Least work method for you, let them auto approve and they're done. They're in, they have access. But if you want a bit more control, there's those other 2 means where you can do it completely or you can approve them yourself. So that's how customers get access. Let me log in here as a customer and you can see what they get a look at. So first thing that may happen, and again, this is an option within your control, is you can provide a one-on-one message to this customer because obviously he's logging into a specific AR account. This is Bedrock Systems. This message lives inside of, where's Bedrock? I'll show you. Inside of Sage Intacct, and incidentally, that's the Intacct that's backing up this portal. We added a new tab here called Customer Notes. And inside of Customer Notes, here's that message that popped up inside here, right? When I click OK, we'll talk about that in a second. What happens in here, let me just refresh this screen. A second to refresh. What happens now is we've flagged it. We've added this line on the top, again with that, I guess that's the greater than sign, that says it's been read and when it's been read. So kind of in this fashion, you can keep a running communication with this customer through this Customer Notes tab that sits inside of your Sage Intacct setup under the customer record. So the second note that popped up here, this is what we call a broadcast. And this is something you send out to all the customers. So this is controlled in the portal backend on the admin side, which I'll show you a little bit later. And this is you communicating, maybe it's a policy change, maybe it's your holiday hours, whatever. But every customer is going to see this until they click OK. And on a per user basis, once they've clicked that OK, we flag it. They've seen it. We don't have to keep showing it again. So that's some pretty interesting ways to communicate. And what this kind of demonstrated here as well is that live read and feed of data back and forth to Intacct. So I don't want to beat that to death. Just understand that that's what's happening here, right? This is a live read and feed of data. So when somebody says, when I click on this account activity screen here, we are fetching the data right now from Sage Intacct and displaying it on the screen here. So here's some recent payments. There's the one I just did today for $10. Here's the recent invoices that were issued for this company. That's my outstanding balance. So, summary level information about my account. The real meaty stuff starts to come in when you start to look at all the history and all the different document types that sit inside of Sage Intacct for me as a customer. And we will display all of these document types unless you turn them off in the back end. If there's some of these you don't want to display, you just turn them off. It's a simple checkbox in the back end. They don't show up on this list, and they don't show up on this list. So you can control that as well. But for as much history as is in here, we will display it because, again, we're reading that data live. So, if it's in there, we can show it. And you can notice that these are highlighted in blue. And of course, everybody knows that means you click on it and you can drill down. And what we're doing is giving you an on-screen display of that invoice document and the line items that are on that invoice document. And we also provide the reprint capability here, so I can save it to a PDF from here. I can print it to whatever printers I've got hooked up to my system. This is kind of the default version that we send. We do denote it as a web copy, so if it doesn't look identical to the one that's coming out of your Sage Intacct, then at least they understand, I got this from the portal. It's not an exact replica, but it does have every line item and all the important invoice details will be on here. And again, save it, print it, do whatever you want to do. And that holds true with any document that sits inside of Intacct. It would hold true for orders, it would hold true for invoices, credit notes, debit notes, all of that stuff the same way. If they wanted to just look in here and see all my outstanding invoice documents, well, here you go. This is kind of like my statement of account. This is what's outstanding right now for me as a customer of yours. The biggest reason people get the portal, I would say, is so that their customers can pay them online whenever they want. They don't have to get you on the phone. You don't have to have your staff do a non-PCI compliant, jot the credit card number down on the sticky note, and all that kind of stuff would go away because the customer just selects, I want to make a payment. And notice we did light this up again. We can turn that off if you want to. If you click on that line, it will sort of partially explode out so you can see what line items are on there. But when I go to make that payment, again, we'll pop up a secondary screen in this case. And I wanted to show you something here. We have the ability to store those encrypted card tokens. Now, again, this is not the credit card itself. It is only that encrypted card token, which we're allowed to have to stay on the right side of PCI compliance. It is the payment gateway, the vault, that has this information. And all we have is that encrypted card. And the only thing that's good for is for that customer to pay me. It can be good for nothing else. So that's all good on the right side of PCI compliance. And again, we're sticking to the rules. Being owned by a payment processor, they know the rules. They stick to them very, very strictly because that's their bread and butter. That's how they make their living. So if I have a stored card here and I hit that make payment button, the next thing I see is the on-screen receipt. I don't have to enter my card details again, so it really streamlines that whole process. But we also allow them to pay by ACH as well. So here you would just enter your transit number, account number, and all that information on here, and then we'll facilitate that transaction as well through the payment gateway. Now we do have, and you maybe noticed this on the click to pay, there was a unallocated sort of radio button on the top. We can take I think it's called an advance payment in Sage Intacct, where we just take a payment on account and it sits on that customer's account until you apply it to something. And this is the means for them to do that. This manage credit cards here, this just displays the different credit card tokens that we have on file for this customer. Now this one's shown as expired, which means they won't be able to use it. If they choose to delete it, we'll mark it as inactive. It won't display here anymore. So this just shows them what they've got here on our system. The view orders will show all the different order types in here, of course, and it's got both active and quotes inside of here. And again, ones with a balance or not. So you can see I've got sales orders, I've got quotes, one with an order that's been created. And when I click on that icon, it shows me which invoice, or sorry, which sales order that quote went to. And if that sales order has been converted to an invoice, it would show the invoice document. Here's a quote that's sitting in the system and it's approved. And there is a reference field that you just mark approved in there. And we will allow that to display here, in which case the customer can turn that into an active order if they want to do that. So that's a nice, easy way to perhaps get a quote out to your customer. They can review that quote either by drilling down on it, or they can just click on that line and it's going to, again, expand out, show all the line items on there. If they like what they see, they can turn that into an active order right here. So that's just a quick look at what shows up on the view order side of things. The order entry side here, this is where we allow customers to place an order. And again, we've got context because somebody is logged in here. We know who they are. We know what company they're associated with. We know what pricing's been granted to them and what products they can buy because they're on their price list. We know their different shipping addresses. They could give us a PO number. They can request the delivery date, shipping instructions, all that kind of stuff. And again, they can collapse this if they happen to be on a mobile device, and I can show you how this displays on a mobile device. Once I shrink it down, you'll notice that the entering line items is always available here, no matter what goes on the screen. And you'll also notice that we didn't just squash down the display. We actually reformatted it, made some of the items drop in underneath itself. We changed the menu to one of the fold-out menus because this has to work on a mobile device. And this is what that initial screen would look like. So all the screens format well, regardless of the device that happens to be used. So again, back to that order entry screen. And remember, and I don't think I stated this clearly, we do not have any data on the portal. Everything that we get comes from a live read of Sage Intacct. So we don't have a list of all the items sitting on our platform waiting for someone to query it. So when somebody wants to order an item, what they have to do is type in at least 3 characters and either hit the enter key, or this finder. Now, if they've got this checkbox turned off here, they can just go through here and entirely keyboard driven, they can enter line items. So let's say I wanted to select that guy. It's just going to show up on that line. I can enter the quantity, and carry on through the whole keyboard system and continue to just sort of pound in an order, like order entry. So clearly, I need to understand a little bit about either the item number. Now, these are the different fields that we'll search, by the way, when somebody's entering those 3 characters. Anything in the item number, anything in the description field. And I believe there's a field that's called maybe web descriptions. So anything in that field, we will search to satisfy that search request. So let me turn this switch on again and just show you again. So when I click that and I hit the enter key, again, we're running out to Intacct. We're bringing back everything that satisfied that. So let's say I pick this item here. When I have that checked on, it's going to pop up another screen. And here's that additional information. Again, those lines that we would be searching for that information that you typed in, those 3 characters or more that you typed in there. We also have the option of displaying an image here. So we can store images relative to this product that you can display for the customer as they're going through this process. So those are the different ways that we can create an order. In fact, we can do quotes, we can do orders, and again, you can turn these on and off. That's up to you. And we can have these come in draft mode or in active mode. Again, that's up to you how you want to set that up in the back end and how you want these quotes or orders to come into Sage Intacct. So completely controllable by you how you want this stuff to interact with your Sage Intacct system. And once I click onto, let's say, place that order, this will immediately place that order directly into Sage Intacct. Here's the order number. So if I went into Sage Intacct and looked under, I believe it's order entry, and I think I placed an order, didn't I? Sales, sales order. There we go. And what was it? 082? 854, pardon me. So there it is, 854. There's that order I just sent into Sage Intacct. And when this happens as well, there's notifications that go out internally that a sales order was placed on here, and you may have a different team under Microsoft Teams or a different Slack channel or a different email distribution list you want this to go to. So that's the sales order. Sorry, that's the order entry side of things. And again, as you would expect, when I go back into my view orders, let me just refresh that. Wait, is it updated? Or is it H3? Was it H4? Yeah, there it is. There's that order I just placed. So that's the customer facing side of the portal. And hopefully that shows that it's really simple to use. You don't have to really provide training. It's quite intuitive. I mean, it's, as you can see, it's very straightforward for someone to use. From a merchant standpoint, you've got your login that allows you to control what goes on in the portal. And again, this is something you don't really have to go into a lot. I mean, you will maybe periodically go in there to change something, or maybe to update that broadcast message that went out. But let me just sort of walk you through quickly some of the more important things in the back end here. So this tells you how many payments you've received. This is today. Here's month to date. Here's year to date. And here's last year. Here's the number of users that are logging into the system. And here's the number of customers. These are AR customers, and these are users relative to those AR customers. Remember, I said you can have more than one user on any AR customer. So the month to date, year to date, last year. This just indicates if we've taken a payment and we're not able to get it inside of Sage Intacct. So when we take that payment, we automatically send that into Intacct so it will reconcile against the invoice, the customer, and the bank. So there's nothing you have to do on that side of the transaction. So you can see where allowing your customers to make that payment fully automates that whole process. They take care of entering their credit card details, and the system takes care of getting it inside of Sage Intacct. So there's nothing that you or your staff have to do to facilitate that payment. So if you're taking, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 payments a day, imagine how much time you're saving not having to deal with those individual transactions. So this is a huge time saver, not to mention the fact that you're probably getting paid a lot earlier than you would normally because you've made it very easy for your customers to pay. So that's some of the benefit of having a system like this. The customer side here, this is that broadcast message I spoke about at the very beginning. So this is where you'll reset it. You can have a starting date, an ending date. If I hit that reset, it's going to turn it back on for everybody. Pretty simple. This is where all the users are controlled. And if you remember at the beginning where I said you can completely control which users get added to the system, and that's how you'll do it from here. And there's really 3 user types right now. There's the guys we just looked at, which is the customers, the merchant, which we're logged into right now, or salesperson. And this is really any internal staff member. The only difference between this and the customer view is that the first question we will ask them is, which customer do you want to work with? And they will enter either the customer's name, which we'll search, or their customer number, or their phone number, or email address. So we'll search a bunch of different fields to allow that salesperson to find that customer. And then they can do the same thing that the customer would be able to do on their account. They can place an order on their behalf. They can accept a payment on their behalf and enter through the secure payment processing vault like we talked about earlier. And of course, lots of great filter capabilities. You can always find a user in here. And if you remember in the beginning, we talked about how customers can self-register and get automatic access. If you got an email back from them that said, no, turn that guy off, you just come in here and inactivate that account and he's done. You can't get access anymore. So that's pretty simple stuff. The receipts here, this is every payment that has ever been made or attempted to have been made on the portal is registered here. Here's that one I just did today. This is telling me we did get to insert it inside of Intacct, so it's done. Nothing you have to do. And when you click on this, you have all of the relevant information in here. Card number, authorization code, all that stuff is in here for you to see. So this one started, didn't finish. That was probably me messing around in here. So I did not finish that transaction, but I started it. And so there's a few of those, and that's typically me messing around in here and not completing a transaction, just yakking about it. So you will always be able to find that transaction in here by user, by customer number, by document number, status of that, excuse me, transaction, reference number, which appears in here somewhere, I think. Oh, no, that would be, sorry, that was probably on your payment reference select the date, range the account or the account or amounts, all those kind of things you can search by. And this part over here is where you control the settings of your portal. So remember I said there were 5 questions that we would ask to authorize a particular user's access. So here they are: zip code, email, last payment amount, last invoice number, last invoice date. So things they would have to know. And this is where you turn on that self-registration and auto approval. And this button here turns the portal on and off entirely. This is where you tell us what logo you want to display up in that upper left corner here, and your welcome message address, all that good stuff you control here. Pretty simple. The features and capabilities, here's where you turn those on and off. So let's say you subscribe to everything, but you didn't want to do stored cards. You just click it here, doesn't show up. So simple. Same with the document types. I want to see all of them, or I don't want to see, I don't know, credit notes. So they don't show up on that document. Pretty simple to change and to save. And the other relevant information in here are the notifications, I think. Now this is where you're going to tell us who gets informed of specific actions that happen on the portal. So for instance, from a technical perspective, if we can't connect for some reason, we need to tell somebody. And if it's not within our control, we need to inform somebody internally there's an issue. So that's who this would be. And here's how you tell us how you want them to be informed, by which methods. AR contact, you can inform of a bunch of different things. A new user registered, a payment was received, or somebody started the transaction but didn't complete it. And who in AR needs to know about that. So again, Slack, Teams, or distribution list probably is what we would recommend as opposed to a single person. But that's really up to you. And the same holds true with order entry. When an order gets placed on the web, who do you want to know about it? Same communication methods are available there. And you probably noticed on the front page there was a contact us icon, or in the menu items contact us. It's really just a feedback form. They can fill in anything they want and send it to you. Who do you want to be notified of that? And who do you want to inform the customer that a new user registered? You turn that on and off. Do you want to inform the customer that somebody created an order? Or do you want to inform them the payment was received? So all those notifications are controlled in here. But again, as you can see, once you set this stuff up, you don't have to go in here and mess with it. It's done. It's set up. You don't have to deal with it. On the order entry side of things, there's a few different things that you can set up here. I don't want to go through this in gory detail. It gets a little bit too into the weeds for the purposes of this presentation, but just know that there's all kinds of settings in here that you can set up with respect to how you want your orders or quotes to be controlled within Sage Intacct. And I think that runs us through the bulk of anything else in here that would be interesting. I think that's probably it. That shows you pretty much all the relevant stuff about the customer portal. And again, the biggest reason that folks get the customer portal is probably to get their customers to make payments online. Got quite a few folks that do use the order entry side of things, as in a lot of them use it just for their internal staff to do sales order processing. So they don't have to necessarily give them access to Sage Intacct to do it. They can do it right from here, ends up in Intacct. So that limits the number of people that need to be, messing around in the accounting system. They can do it from this system without having to give them a user license to get into Intacct to do it. So, maybe you can avoid some user licensing inside of Intacct by doing that. Because we don't consume any user licensing inside of Sage Intacct. And you can have as many people as you want using this system with the one annual subscription. So I've been monitoring. I don't see any questions coming through here, so I think we're good to carry on. But if you do have any questions, please do feel free, pop them into the Q&A, and I'll be happy to answer them. Next question is usually, how much does this cost? Well, it's an annual subscription. You would get it directly from North49. We are on the Sage Intacct Marketplace. There's a one-time setup fee, and that gets your instance set up in our data centers. And then the customer portal itself is $22.95 annually in US dollars. The Canadian, you can see priced underneath there. Incidentally, this is all printed on our website. You can go to north49.com and look under the Sage Intacct customer portal, and you'll find all of this stuff printed there. Gives you an overview of what's included on the customer portal side of things. Then your optional add-on is to use the online payments. That's how much it costs, as you can see there. And again, annual subscription. And then the quick order entry That's what's included there, and that is the cost to add the quick order entry. And if you wanted all of them, what are we at here? There's about 56, under $6,000 annually for everything. Most folks are customer portal and online payments. So what are we at there? About 23 and 14, so 3,600. So under $4,000 annually gets you all of that. If you're saving one full-time equivalent employee for $4,000 annually, I think this thing's paid for itself in less than a month. So that's it in a nutshell. The customer portal, we would get you set up with a merchant account through our Evo Payments parent company. And then you would be set up in pretty good shape to let your customers self-serve and offload a lot of that administrative burden and a lot of those kind of low-value customer queries like resend my invoice, because the customer can now do it themselves. Any questions from anybody? Well, if you don't think of anything now and you think of something later, feel free to fire me off an email. This solutions at North49 will come to me. So I will be able to answer those questions for you directly. And again, we'll have this recorded. If you need it to share with colleagues, let me know. I'll be happy to provide you with a copy. So thanks again for your attention and for joining us. And I hope we can speak with you soon about getting this set up for your systems. Thanks very much, everyone.